Hello, and welcome to another episode of the Spaghetti Westerns podcast. I'm Tom Betts, your host. Today we've got up to season 7, episode 4, number 125. We're going to talk about the history of the Spaghetti Western, the 65 film, The Cult Is My Law. We're going to talk about whatever became of John Steiner. Who are those guys? Will be Luis Davila. Film of the week is A Man Called Blade. I've got an autograph of the week. I've got a book of the week. I've got one poster. And the two CDs are The Cult Is My Law and A Man Called Blade. And then we'll wrap things up with News of the Week, which is only a couple of obituaries. There were no books, no CDs, nothing released on that side. So let's get going and we'll talk about the history of the Spaghetti Western and The Cult Is My Law. Okay, The Cult Is My Law was a 65 Italian-Spanish co-production. The Italian title is La Colte y la Mia Legge. The Spanish title is La Ley del Cote. The English alternate titles are The Gun Is My Law and My Gun Is the Law, both English titles, and The Cult Is My Law is the one where most of us know it by. Producers were Vittorio Musi, Glory, and John Stolf. I don't know who John Stolf is or whether that's an alias. The director is credited as Al Bradley. That's Alfonso Brescia. Story is by Al Bradley. Franco d'Este, which is Franco Cobianchi. Ramon Comas. Turner, which is Ramon Termes. Peter White is Adriano Micantoni. Mario Musi. The screenplay is by the same people. Cinematography is by Eloy Mella. It's an Eastman color in widescreen. Music is by Carlos Castellanos Gomez and Carlos Avina, and it runs 92 minutes. The cast consists of Peter Webb, played by Michael Rivers, also credited as Michael Martin, and that's Miguel de la Riva. George Benson is played by Anthony Clark. That's an alias for Angel Del Pozo. Lupe/Louise/Lisa O'Brien is played by Lucy Gilly. Henry O'Brien is played by Peter White. That's an alias for Franco Cobianchi d'Este. And Mark is played by Grant Laramie. That's an alias by Hermano Longo. Also, a couple of other names you might recognize in here is Billy Ukmar, which is actually Bruno Ukmar, plays Stevens. And where you find one Ukmar, you usually find a couple of other of his brothers, which is true. O'Brien recruits are played by Clemente Ukmar and Giancarlo Ukmar. And Hamilton is played by Franco Ukmar. So we have all of the Ukmar brothers present. Excuse me. The story goes, two strangers named George Benson, played by Angel Del Pozo, and Peter Webb, played by Miguel de la Riva, arrive in the border town of San Felipe, Texas. The area has been the scene of numerous robberies and assaults, and no one is safe traveling the countryside. Soon after their arrival, a masked gunman starts showing up to foil the bandits' plans. Webb has managed to purchase a mine from the town boss and rancher Henry O'Brien, played by Peter White, who covets and winds up working for him. The other is now engaged to marry a local beauty called Lupe Louise O'Brien, played by Lucy Gilly, the niece of O'Brien. It turns out the two strangers are federal agents and that they are working with each other. Two men combine their investigative findings and come to the conclusion that the leader is O'Brien, the greedy town boss, and his right-hand henchman, Mark, played by Grant Laramie, who heads the gang of thieves. This was released on VHS only in the Netherlands and Norway, but it is on YouTube. This small but enticing Euro Western offers two heroes, a dandy and a Levi wearing hardcase. The ever-present greedy and evil capitalist and the beautiful young lady between them. We get a plethora of stagecoach robberies, shootouts, and fistfights, plus a masked defender of the weak whose true identity will baffle few of the viewers. This similar plot will be used in coming years, with Robert Woods appearing in a similar Western as a masked Avenger in 1966's The Star Black, and Craig Hill in 1975's In the Name of the Father, the Son, and the Cult, not to mention the Zorro imitations, the Coyote films. In this, you'll see several ponchos being worn, which is an obvious influence by Fistful of Dollars. The film is similar in plot and style to American Beat Western with spaghetti Western elements. The suave debonair is played by Angel Del Pozo of The Big Gun Down, where he played the hapless Shep, and the early Spanish Western star Miguel de la Riva as our masked hero. Between the two agents, they both displayed the attributes of the Zorro character, Del Pozo by day and de la Riva by night. Some viewers say it's also like the Lone Ranger, so you take your pick. Nice to see two of the lesser known actors getting star billing and are able to show off their acting skills. The film is one of Alfonso Brescia's better efforts, and Carlos Savina's score is an added plus. Okay, actor profiles. Peter Webb is played by Michael Rivers, who is in actuality Miguel de la Riva. He's also an enigma. All we know about him that I've been able to find out is that he was born in Madrid, Spain, most likely in the 1930s, although I can find no actual date of birth. He was married and had a daughter. Is he still living? I have no idea. I can find little to no information at all about him. But here's a guy who appeared in 27 spaghetti westerns and several he actually starred in, yet he's mentioned by name only in most books on westerns or Spanish films. George Benson is played by Anthony Clark, who is actually Angel Del Pozo, born Angel Del Pozo Moreno on July 14, 1934 in Madrid. He's a director, writer, film, TV actor, and the father of journalist Almudena Del Pozo. He was awarded the Tabernas de Cine Award at the 2020 Almeria Western Film Festival. He appeared in 14 spaghetti westerns, and we covered him in greater detail in episode number 106, and he's still living. Lupe/Louise/Lisa O'Brien was played by Lucy Gilly, who's actually Luciana Gilly, Gilli, who was born in Rome on November 11, 1944. She attended the CSC for a year but dropped out because her career as a model was keeping her too busy. She became a film actress who acted under the aliases Gloria Gilly and Judy Gilly. She appeared in 24 films and TV appearances from 1959 to 1971. She retired prematurely due to a dissatisfaction with the roles she was offered and for the lack of a good agent. Gilly appeared in 4 spaghetti westerns. Henry O'Brien was played by Peter White. Peter White is Lanfranco Cobianchi d'Este. He was born in Obrignano, Pistoia, Italy on October 3, 1930. He was an assistant director, writer, and film actor. He was a writer on this film as well as playing a leading role. He appeared as an actor in 30-plus films and wrote screenplays for 6 others. Between 1955 and 1969. While Lanfranco dropped out of the business is unknown, but he died in Cocomara di Cona, Ferrara, Italy on July 12, 2015, at the age of 84. He appeared in 6 spaghetti westerns while writing screenplays for 3. Mark, played by Grant Laramie, he's actually Mario Longo, born in Pogiardo, Lecce, Italy on May 24, 1933. He graduated from the CSC in 53. His only star billing was in his screen debut in 1955 adventure drama Moana, Virgin of the Amazon, filmed in Venezuela. From that point forward, he was cast in supporting roles. During the 1960s, he was also billed as Herman Lang, James Harridan, and Grant Laramie. In the 1970s, till his retirement in 1981, he concentrated on television and film dubbing. Laramie also appeared in fotonovelas. He is the father of dubbing actress Hermano Longo, born in 1970, and grandfather of actor Emanuela Serafili, who was born in 2007. He died in Rome on July 14, 2022, at the age of 89. He appeared in 6 spaghetti westerns. Okay, that does it for the history of the spaghetti westerns. Now we'll move on to whatever became of John Steiner. Okay, John Steiner was born in Chester, Cheshire, England on January 7th, 1942. He attended the Royal Academy of Dramatic Art and performed on stage for the Royal Shakespeare Company. He then found work primarily in films, including the original Bedazzled in 1967 with Dudley Moore. In 1969, Steiner was hired to play a part in the spaghetti western Tepeppa, also known as Blood and Guns, and also appeared opposite Franco Nero in White Fang, directed by Lucio Fulci. In 1971, he starred in the television series Hein. In 1979, he was featured in the leading role of Leo in a television production of Design for Living by Noel Coward. In addition to English, Steiner spoke French, Italian, and German, and found himself in demand in Italy, so he moved there, appearing in a number of Italian exploitation and B films, including police actioners such as Violent Rome, war films such as The Last Hunter, and deported women of the SS Special Section, sci-fi adventure films as Yor, the Hunter from the Future, and horror films such as Mario Bava's Shock, Dario Argento's Tenebrae, and Ruggero Deodato's Body Count. He also became a favorite of famed Italian filmmaker Tinto Brass, who featured him in Salon Kitty, the infamous Caligula, Action, and his last film, Paprika. He remained in steady demand until the late 1980s. As the Italian film industry dwindled, Steiner retired from acting in 1991 and moved to Beverly Hills, California, with his wife and son. There he became a successful high-end real estate agent. Steiner later contributed to DVD extras on some of his films and gave interviews about his Italian work. Bill Connolly and I interviewed him for both of our fanzines, Westerns all'Italiana and Spaghetti Cinema. He was very cordial and welcomed our questions. I was in the process of setting up a time for him to appear on the podcast when he was killed in a car crash in La Quinta, California on July 31st, 2022. John Steiner appeared in 4 spaghetti westerns and one of them that was never made. The spaghetti westerns were Blood and Guns, or Tepeppa in 1968. He played the role of Dr. Henry Price, or Bryce. For Love of God in 1973 as an ex-outlaw, this is the one that was never made. White Fang in 1973, he plays Charles Beauty Smith. And the challenge to White Fang, the sequel in 1974 as Beauty Smith, Charles IV. Then he played A Man Called Blade in 1977 as Theo Valor. And in a sort of a documentary, The Outsider in 2013. Now we'll move along to Who Are Those Guys? And Luis Davila. Okay, Luis Davila was born Hector Carmelo Gonzalez Ferrantino in Buenos Aires, Argentina, on July 15, 1927. He had an early vocation towards acting and began his career in the theater and made his film debut in El Barrio, directed by Carlos Rinaldi in 1952. In the early 50s, he appeared in over 15 films in his native land, with 6 in 1955 alone. With the beginning of the 60s, he decided to move to Europe and in 1962 appeared in a film directed by Juan Bosch called Bahia de Palma, a comedy with Arturo Fernandez and Elke Summer and the great Spanish comedian Casim. Soon Davila became a regular figure in European cinema through the heyday of so-called genre films and the proliferation of co-productions. He starred in Mark Motto Agent S-077 in 1965, a typical spy movie, and was paired with Perla Crystal, another Argentinian, repeating in this genre the following year in S-077 Operación Relampago. Luis also participated in adventure films like Los Tigres de Montparnasse in 1970, based on the character Sandokan created by Emilio Salagri, and Long Live Robin Hood in 71. Thrillers such as Rebus in 69 with Lawrence Harvey and Anne Margaret, remarkable A Quiet Place to Kill in 1970, directed by Umberto Lenzi with Carol Baker and Jean Sorrell, war films such as Suicide Commandos in 68 with Aldo Ray and Eagles Over London in 69, directed by Enzo Castellari, and among others, Van Johnson, Frederick Stafford, and Paco Rabanne. Ivanhoe the Norman Swordsman in 71, starring Mark Damon. Davila debuted in the Euro-Western genre in Relevo para un Pistolero in 1964 with Alex Nichol, one of the few films still filmed in black and white, and participated through 1971 in 6 more westerns, 4 of them produced by the Balcazar brothers. He starred in 1966's Dynamite Jim as Dynamite Jim Farrell. He was also scheduled to appear in 2 spaghetti westerns that were never made. In the late 70s, with his career in decline, he returned to Argentina where he starred in several television series. In 1990, his work took him to Santiago, Chile, where he recorded the soap opera Via Napoli. While there, he suffered a heart attack and then had to face a long convalescence as a result of the fracture of his leg and hip. From then on, his health declined and kept him away from much activity and forced him to retire from the world of acting altogether and live his last years almost forgotten. On August 21st, 1998, he died of cardiorespiratory failure in a sanatorium Santa Isabel de Buenos Aires, just prior to receiving an award given to him by the Association Podesta Actors Argentina. He was 2 weeks shy of his 71st birthday. I'll post both his and John Steiner's Western filmography on YouTube and Facebook when we get done with this episode. Okay? Now let's move along to Film of the Week and A Man Called Blade. Okay, bear with me for a second while I lay these out in order. Manaya is the Italian title. English title is A Man Called Blade. It's a 77 Italian film production, produced by Luciano Martino and directed by Sergio Martino. They're brothers. The story is by Sergio Martino and the screenplay is by Martino and Saro Scavallini. Cinematography is by Federico Zani. It's in Eastman color. Music is by the De Angelis brothers, Guido and Maurizio. And there's a song, Wolf and Snake, 2 songs, sung by Dandelion, who's an alias for Cesare de Natali. When you think of this soundtrack, think of Keoma. There's a lot of things in this film and Keoma that are almost identical or very similar. The main casts pertain of Merton or Manaya Blade, played by Maurizio Merli. Theo Valor is played by John Steiner. Deborah McGowan is played by Sonia Janine. Bert Craven is played by Donald O'Brien. Edward M. McGowan is played by Philip Leroy. And Angela is played by Martine Brochard. A couple of other familiar names are Gerard Merton is played by Rick Battaglia. The government agent is played by Enzo Firmonte. And the story goes, Merton, or Manaya, a bounty hunter nicknamed Blade, played by Maurizio Merli, for his skill in using a hatchet, was shocked when at an early age he witnessed the murder of his father. Now an adult, he returns to his hometown to avenge his father's death. He finds the old murderer McGowan, played by Philippe Leroy, paralyzed and in a wheelchair. By his side is Theo Valor, played by John Steiner, an evil tyrant, who is his right-hand henchman. With the miners in revolt at McGowan's mine, Merton is captured and tortured, but he is saved by the outlaw Bert Craven, played by Donald O'Brien, whom Blade had arrested but released earlier from his custody. Blade goes on the attack and disposes of Valor and his henchmen and sets the town free from tyranny. Manaya is the Italian word for hatchet, so it's applicable to the name of the film and the character. Early on, we see this is going to be a hard-hitting, no-nonsense Western when Blade uses his hatchet to cut off the hand of the outlaw Bert Craven, who he's pursuing in the fog. John Steiner is at his best and portrays an evil to the core henchman, with his two Great Danes by his side. He's an impressive force, and his henchmen are at his beck and call. Steiner was afraid of horses, so many of his shots on horseback were actually shot with him sitting on fences or standing on platforms. The film was filmed at the deteriorating Elio Studios, and the use of smog and fog is used just like in Keoma to cover for the broken down town set. The outdoor riding and coach scenes were filmed in Campo Imperatore L'Aquila, Abruzzo, Italy. Sergio Martino does an impressive job of directing the entire project, which failed to bring back the genre to its prior glory. The comedy and parody westerns of the early and mid 70s had destroyed the feel of the films, and viewers had moved on to crime and kung fu films. When I first saw this film, I said to myself, who's Maurizio Merli? And then I said, where's this guy been? Too bad he didn't make more westerns a decade earlier, as surely he would have rivaled Franco Nero and Gianni Garco as one of the best of the Italian actors. Later I found out that he had made his niche as king of the police crime films, which I wasn't interested in and didn't get to see very many. I was honored to have been chosen by Bill Lustig to write the liner notes for the Blue Underground DVD release of this film. It's available on Germany in Blu-ray, and the US, UK, France, Italy, Spain, Denmark, Sweden, Japan, and Germany in DVD. As far as actor profiles go, Merton Manaya, or Blade, was played by Maurizio Merli. Maurizio Merli was born in Rome on February 8, 1940. He found stardom after the success of his participation in Violent Rome in 1975 and became a star of the Poliziottesche genre, making 11 more. His role is similar to Clint Eastwood's Dirty Harry. As the genre declined, so did Merli's career. Merli loved playing tennis, and unaware he had heart trouble, died of a heart attack after a match on March 10, 1989. He was only 49. His son, Maurizio Matteo Merli, was born in 1981, is also an actor. We covered Maurizio previously in episode number 34. He made two other spaghetti westerns, Two Ringos from Texas in 1967, in a small role as a Union soldier, and White Fangs to the Rescue in 74 as Bert Halloway. Theo Valor was played by John Steiner, and we just covered John in Whatever Became Of. There's a picture of him from A Man Called Blade. Deborah McGowan was played by Sonia Janine. In the credits, it's spelled Sonya, but her real name is Sonia Janine Sonja. She was born in Austria on July 21st, 1956. She started out in the theater and then appeared in 36 films and TV series, several of them German and Italian sexploitation films. Her career ended in the mid-1980s when she had a daughter, Nadine, with entrepreneur actor Richard Lugner, 23 years her elder. Today she lives in Las Vegas, Nevada as a real estate agent. She appeared in only one other Euro-Western, Trinity, the Bell, and the Guitar in 74 as one of the Gold Sisters. Then we have Edward M. McGowan, played by Philip Leroy. Philip Marie Paul Leroy Bulot was born in Paris, France on October 15, 1930. He's a film and TV actor, singer, and the son of one-time Inspector General of Finance Paul Leroy Bulot, who was born in 1902 and died in 1999. And he's the brother of politician Pierre Leroy Bulot, who was born in 1928. He died in 2006. The veteran actor has appeared in nearly 200 films and television programs from 1960 to 2018. He's been married 3 times and has 4 children. Watching him in Manaya as an old man, it's hard to believe he played the young lead in 1966's Tinto Brass's film Yankee a decade earlier. He's also appeared as Gerard Briscott's 71's Handle Caliber 38. Excuse me. Bert Craven was played by Donald O'Brien. His real name is Donald, Donal, Timothy O'Brien, and he was born in Pau-Pyrénées in Lantics, France on September 5, 1930. He was a theater, film, and TV actor. He appeared in nearly 70 films, 19 of those were spaghetti westerns, after an earlier career in the theater. His first breakout role was in Grand Prix in '66, starring alongside James Garner and Eva Marie Saint. In 1980, while staying at a Parisian hotel, he slipped in the bathroom and hit his head. He was in a coma for 3 days and discovered half his body was paralyzed shortly after waking up. It took him nearly 4 years to recover from his injuries, though he would have limited mobility for the rest of his life. This would also reduce the range of roles he could play. Later, in the early 1990s, he was walking on the beach with 2 of his brothers. He attempted a short sprint but fell and was unable to get up. His brothers took him to a hospital where he was discovered that the hip bones on one side of his body were severely damaged due to being overly stressed, probably from his earlier accident. This ended his acting career in 1994. O'Brien died in Andernos-les-Bains, Nouvelle-Aquitaine, France on April 23, 2018. He was 88. And last but not least is Angela, who was played by Martine Brochard. Annie Martine Brochard was born in Paris on April 12, 1944. She's an author, singer, director, theater, film, radio, and TV actress. Martine appeared in 75 films and TV appearances from 1967 to 2014. She's the mother of director Ferdinando B. Seriani, who was born in '73, with actor Umberto Seriani, who was born in '39. She was married to director Franco Mole, who was born in '39 and he died in 2006, and they were married from 1984 till his death. She moved from France to Rome in 1970 and became a minor star in police, comedy, and sex giallo films. From 1995 to 1999, she authored 2 collections of children's stories. In 2003, Brochard was diagnosed with leukemia, from which she was able to recover. Today, she gives talks and lectures on healing through faith and a belief in miracles. This was her only spaghetti westerns. Okay, let's move on to Book of the Week. Okay, this is Book of the Week. It's the Italo Western and More, a film guide. It's by Felix Holbuck, and it was self-published in the United States in English, and it has 175 pages, has no pictures, and it briefly gives a list of titles, a small plot outline, actors in it, usually the composer, and then his comment on the films. It covers just the major films, but if you're new to the genre, it's well worth watching the films and picking up this book. It's available on Amazon. It's pretty cheap, and it gives you a good idea what the films are about and some direction on where to find them. Okay? Now let's move on to how about Poster of the Week, Tom's Poster Addict. Okay, I've only got one poster this week. It's the German poster for My Gun is the Law. It's basically a generic drawing or painting, but as you can see, it's got some of the aliases are all in English, like Michael Martin instead of Miguel de la Riva. It's got Peter White, Jim Clay, and Grant Laramie on the bottom, so it went along with the Spanish and Italian releases and using the English names. Okay, now let's do autograph of the week. Okay, this isn't as good as Jay's, but I do have a picture and an autograph from Dean Reed. There's his autograph right where my fingers are down at the bottom in ink. So that's the autograph of the week, the great Dean Reed, the Red Elvis. Okay, let's move on to CD of the week. Okay, CD of the week. First one is The Cult Is My Law, which we went over. It was only released on CD. It was by Carlos Avina. It was released in 2010 out of Italy on Digit Movies. It's number CDDM 177. Has 18 tracks of music and a listing time of 35 minutes and 20 seconds. If you have this CD, it's worth about 18 bucks. Then we have A Man Called Blade, and there's actually 3 CDs of this release, but I only have one. I was going to mention a lot of CD collection is like film collecting. You get multiple releases, and if there's 15 seconds more of a track, I'm not interested in buying another CD for 15 seconds of an additional track or something like that, just like they do with the films. They'll put an extra on there, or they'll put another. You'll look at the running time and it's 10 minutes longer, and it's usually a cut scene that has nothing to do with the film. But anyways, Man Called Blade was released as Manaya. It was released in 1979 out of Italy on Comida. It's on number CMT 1008/20. Only 1,000 were issued. Has 13 tracks of music, no vocals. Listing time is 32 minutes and 20 seconds. This thing is worth 98 bucks. Okay, then it has another release, came out in 93 from Italy on RCA, number 74321-15508-2. This has 19 tracks of music. This does contain the vocals, has a listening time of 43 minutes and 16 seconds, and it's worth 35 bucks. And last but not least is another Italian CD release, came out in 2011. It's on Comida. It's CMT 10016. Has 20 tracks of music, no vocals, 36 minutes and 35 seconds, and its value is $66. Okay, the composers, which we've gone over, mentioned them before, but the composers were on Manaya were Guido and Maurizio De Angelis. Guido was born on December 22nd, 44, in Rocca di Papa, Lazio, Italy, and his brother Maurizio was born there on February 22nd, 1947. They're still alive, they still give concerts, and they're still very active in film scoring. They're both music producers, composers, conductors, orchestrators, songwriters, musicians, singers, and actors. A lot of times you can see them listed on their alias Juniper, which they are usually, those are the songs on their tracks. They'll say sung by Juniper, that's them. They've composed soundtracks for 13 spaghetti westerns, including several Terence Hill and Bud Spencer westerns, such as They Call Me Trinity. Okay, now we'll move on to weekly news. Okay, as I mentioned in the beginning, no books, no CDs, no DVDs, no Blu-rays were released this week, but we have 2 obituaries to go over. First one is for Sandra Milo. She was one of Italy's most popular film and television actresses. She died in Rome on January 29th at the age of 90. She was born Salvatrice Elena Greco in Tunis on March 11, 1933. Sandra made her film debut at the age of 20 in 1955, co-starring alongside Alberto Sordi in La Scapolo. For the next full decade, she unleashed her fiery figure on a number of tempted male players in scores of saucy comedies, feisty costumers, and steamy melodramas. Such films included Nero's Mistress in '56, The Mirror Has Two Faces in '58, Toto to the Moon in '58, General della Rovere in '59, and the period comedy romp The Green Mare in 1959, starring the great French actor Bourvil. Milo appeared in Fine Vantage in two of Fellini's greatest masterpieces, and this was where she's most likely known: Eight and a Half in '63 and Juliet and the Spirits in '65. She left films in '68. Sandra was little seen on camera and did not return to the big screen until over a decade later, now sporadically appearing as severe-looking blondes. Milo was married twice and had 3 children. She appeared in 2 spaghetti westerns as Gwendolyn Skagel in 1967's Bang Bang Kid with Guy Madison and Tom Bosley, and as Liz in 1968's Dead for a Dollar, starring George Hilton and John Ireland. The other obit we have, and this just happened yesterday, was Don Murray, a veteran American film and television actor. Don Murray died on January 2nd, 2024 in Goleta, California. That's just south of Santa Barbara. He was 94. He was born Donald Patrick Murray in Hollywood, but was raised in New York City. He attended the American Academy of Dramatic Arts. He then made it into the cast of the original '51 Broadway production of Tennessee Williams' Tony Award-winning The Rose Tattoo. Universal offered him a contract for $150 a week, but he turned it down. They could put you in whatever picture they wanted, he said, and he wanted none of that, choosing to work in live TV. Murray was a conscientious objector during the Korean War, but he spent nearly 3 years working in German and Italian refugee camps in the Brethren Volunteer Service, a forerunner of the Peace Corps. He came back to the U.S. in 1955 and appeared opposite Marilyn Monroe in Bus Stop. This was his first film. What a way to start. He was only 26 at the time. Television audiences will best remember Murray as Sid Fairgate, the husband of Michelle Lee's character on the CBS primetime soap opera Knots Landing. Murray appeared in one spaghetti western, 1966's Kid Rodello, in the lead role with Broderick Crawford and Janet Leigh. He was to appear in his previous spaghetti called Talion in '64, but it was never filmed. Rob Word, who we interviewed several episodes ago, released an interview that Don did at the Autry Museum on Word on Westerns 4 years ago. He put it on YouTube yesterday, so you can look at it there, and it's very entertaining and interesting. And at 90 years old, Don still has it all together. It was a great interview. Anyways, that wraps it up for this week. Until we see you down the road, this has been Roberto Genesi production, and I'm Tom Betts. Adios, amigos.